What's up, guys? Welcome back to Keep It 100, where we want to just be real, be honest, and be transparent with you. Today, I just want to title this message, What Happens When Things Don't Go According to Plan. I think we've all been there, that we plan things and then it just doesn't go the way it was supposed to be. We went camping about 3 years ago. I went with the Churchills and we went to Moosehead Lake, and this was the first time that I had actually gone out camping in a campground. And I brought my keys and my shorts, and I was excited to go camping. And we go and we set up camp and everything. And the guys are like, well, let's go out to the lake and let's go swim. And so I was like, all right, let's go do it. And I had forgotten that I had keys in my pocket, and I had my car keys, my house keys, and the church keys. And we go out to the lake and go swim. And my shorts were good enough to go on the lake, and we were tossing the tennis ball, we were swimming, we were doing all these fun things, and I completely forgot that my keys were in my pocket. And as we're hanging out and then just getting out of the water, I remember that the keys were in my pocket, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I start to hit my pockets and try to figure if they were there. They're not there. And so we're all like, oh man, the keys are in the lake. And we start going through the lake, trying to find out where the keys are. We can't find them anywhere. And so I'm frantically trying to figure out what to do, because I'm like, that's my car keys, that's my house keys. Every key that I need is in the water somewhere, and I cannot find it. And so I'm like, all right, I can make copies of the house key. I have a spare key in my car. And so I usually lock my car, because when you're in a city, you just by habit lock your car. But for some reason, I didn't lock my car. And so I opened the car door and I'm like, oh yes, I have a spare key. At least I can get out of here. And because of that same reaction of always locking my door, within seconds, all of a sudden I get the spare key, I throw it back in the car, lock the door, shut the door, and I'm not even thinking about it. And then I'm just going to go do my thing. And then Nelson was right there, and he goes, no, you didn't do it. I'm like, no. And I had thrown back the spare key back in the car, and now I locked my car out, and I have no keys to anything. And so that wasn't part of the plan, and so I had to call AAA, and they ended up getting the car open and getting my spare key. And then the next day, I ended up going to the lake, swimming, trying to find my car keys everywhere. And by the grace of God, there was a small tag that I had in my car keys from GNC, and it was a gold tag, and it was sticking out of the sand. And I pull it out, and I find my keys, and I just start celebrating in the water. People are watching. I didn't care. I found my keys. But the whole night, I'm just wondering, before I even found my keys, how the heck am I going to get anywhere without keys? And so that wasn't part of the plan. But I just want to talk to you about that, because there's a verse in the Bible, and I just want to point it to you from Proverbs chapter 16. And there's this verse that says this in verse 9. It says, we can make our own plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And how many of us in life, I myself am a planner. I schedule things on my phone. I have a planner that I would put out my homework when I was in college. With meetings, I'm always constantly putting things on a planner, so that way I'm on schedule. And I like to plan out my day. I like to make sure that I make all my meetings in time. I get every task done. But then there's just unforeseen circumstances that happen. Maybe you got a flat tire, or the coffee spilled on your shirt, so then you had to go get another shirt, and then that took 5 to 10 minutes off your time, so then you're late for the meeting. Things happen in life that mess up our plans. But how we address what comes our way is how we're going to determine our attitudes, determine how the rest of the day is going to go. And I just want to talk to you about a quick example of David in the Bible, because David was prophesied to be king, but it wasn't an easy path for him throughout the whole entire way. David is told he's going to be king. Everybody starts seeing the potential in him. He kills a giant. He ends up becoming a commander in the army of King Saul. He's becoming famous for all of his exploits and everything. People are acknowledging his power, his presence. He's becoming a popular figure. He marries into King Saul's family. Now, if you marry into a royal family, then that's awesome. But not only was he married into a royal family, even the king's sons acknowledged that David would be the next king. And so there was pretty much no opposition in line except for King Saul. And so he was next on the throne after King Saul would die. And so like he's second in command. He's basically going to become a king, and he's at this all-time high. That sounds amazing. But then King Saul becomes jealous of him and tries to kill him twice, and then he's chased into the wilderness. And he's all by himself, and then finally gets a group of people around him. But he's stuck and on the run for 8 years. And during those 8 years, he went through some heavy trials. People accused him of things he didn't do. He was named things that he shouldn't have been named. He was still being pursued by Saul, and his life was on the line. And in 1 Samuel chapter 29, he's in this place where he's starting to get into a good atmosphere. He finds a home, he gets married, he has kids, people are following him, they acknowledge that he's going to be king. But then it says this, that he's coming back from a war that he was going to be part of, but they didn't want him to be part of the war. But then they come back to a place where they live called Ziklag. And a group called the Amalekites had raided this place. And in chapter 30 of 1 Samuel, in verse 1, it says, David came back to Ziklag on the third day, and the Amalekites had made a raid against the Negeb and against Ziklag. And they had overcome Ziklag and burned it with fire and taken everybody in it, both small and great. They didn't kill anyone, but they carried it off and went their way. And in verse 3, it says, David and his men came to the city, and they found it burning with fire. And so here's another situation. He's thinking everything's all right, kind of going good, and then now everything is taken from him. And then it says in verse 4, the people were so bitter, and they just wept and wept until they had no more strength to weep. And I don't know if you've ever been there before, but not even being able to cry anymore because you don't even have the strength to show your sorrow. And it says his wives were taken, his kids, and everybody was so angry at David. They put it on David's life that now they want to stone him. And I don't know about you, but I never want to be stoned. I never want people to throw rocks at me and die that way. And he's at this place right now where everybody is completely against him. The people that he thought were going to be on his side are now want to kill him. King Saul and all of Israel want to kill him. And he's in the bottom of the bottom. He's on the lowest of lows. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but been in the lowest of lows. But how we respond to it is so crucial. And it says in verse 6 in part B, it says, but David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. Despite everything coming his way, he found strength in God. And I just want to point out 3 things that we can get through, because at first David started off with a promise, and he was going to be king. And so we all start off with that. We all have a promise or a prayer that we want to be answered, and we want it to come to right here where it's the product, where we want to see results. But a lot of us don't want to go through the process. And so we have the promise, we have the product, and then we have this place right here called the process that we don't want to go through. A lot of times we want things done right away. We want that prayer to be answered right away, which I believe God can do that. But there's also a process that we have to go through. And David had a process to go through before he became king. But how we handle ourselves in the process is how the product will be resulted. Because if David decided to just give up right there and say, I can't do this anymore, I'm pretty sure the people would have said, you're not fit to be a leader anymore, we should just kill you. And they probably would have taken his life. Throughout everything that came his way, he could have chosen to settle. He didn't have to become king. Maybe he wanted to be a shepherd. I don't know. Maybe he wanted to just be a commander, say, you know, I'm just okay with being a commander. But no, he trusted God enough to say, I know that you gave me a promise, and so I'm going to go through the process so that way I can reach the product. And what's so cool about the definition of a product is that it says that it's the result of being in the process. And so that's what my challenge for you today is that no matter what you're going through, don't ignore the process. God wants us to not be upset about the process or to ignore it, but to embrace the process. One thing I want you to take away from this is hold on to the promise during the process so that way you can get the product. Because Obedience is always going to lead to blessing. And so all David had to do during this time, there were many things that David could have done to become king right away. Twice, King Saul was at literally David's feet, and all he had to do was just kill him. And he had people telling him, this is your opportunity. God's telling you now, you need to kill Saul so that way you could become king. And David's like, no, he's the anointed king. I can't do that. God never told me to do that. And if he did that, he probably would have became king, but not at God's timing. And so because he decided to be obedient and say, I'm going to trust God's process and hold on to the promise during the process, God honored his obedience and blessed him with the product, which he eventually became king at the right time. And it says that God blessed him. He gave him everything. All of the enemies that tried to destroy him now were running away from him because David was just destroying them. He was blessed with riches. He was blessed with a giant family, and his kingdom was just prospering, and they lived in a great and peaceful time. And for my challenge for you is whatever you're going through today, I don't know what you're going through today. Maybe you heard a wrong diagnosis. Maybe you were expecting good news, but they said that the cancer has grown a little more. Maybe you were believing that God was going to take care of that payment, but now they're saying that you're 2 months back from your rent being paid. Kids, maybe for all the Ignite guys and girls, I just want to tell you this. Maybe you have been waiting for everything to open up, and then now they're telling you, now we got to wait a little longer till school and sports opens. Don't let this change your attitude, and don't let all that's happening right now affect the way that you're going to respond. Instead, find your strength in God. It says that David found strength in God, and the next thing he tells him to do, David's like, all right, I found my strength in God. Now, God, what do you want me to do next? And the Lord says, I'm with you. Now go fight these guys. And so he does that, and he ends up conquering and getting his family back, his kids back, all the riches back, everything back. And that's with you, is whatever you're going through right now. Don't let it affect your attitude. Don't let it change you, but say, God, I'm going to find my strength in you, and show me what to do next. What do you want me to do right now? And then God will speak to you and show you how to take the next step during the process so that way you can reach the product. And so that's all I have for you today. Don't let anything take your eyes off of God. Keep focusing on who gives you strength, and that he will give you the strength back so that way you can get your prayers answered. So I love you guys. I'll talk to you next week on our next episode of Keep It 100. God bless you.